Kia ora everyone, my name's Cassie Ratana, this is my husband James. A little bit about us before we get started is our, I guess what we know about mental health or why we're doing this workshop today. My husband and I, we're mental health advocates. We're big on social media about mental health and we utilise social media for mental health. I'm in my third year doing a Bachelor of Health Science degree with my major as psychology. I live with depression. My husband has anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder. So we're quite open and we talk about it a lot, and I assume that's why they asked us to come in, because we're quite happy to talk about our experiences. And my husband's also a filmmaker and a content creator, so he creates videos and things, and we chuck it up on Facebook and try and get the word out and get rid of any bad stigmas, trying to around mental health and mental illness. So that's a little bit about us. Hi, Renee. Welcome. And I will turn the time over to my husband to start our corridor. Yeah. Just let me know.
Okay, kia ora, my name is James, and so today's corridor we're going to I'm going to work through an analogy to try to make sense of kind of what we feel is important in the longer in the process of having mental well-being. Just a quick question: are we all LDS here? Yes, no, yes. Cool. So this will make sense. So we have an analogy. Before I get into that analogy, I'll get my wife to push play. So this push play, so it's a trigger warning. I'm not sure if anyone here lives in any mental illness, but like my wife explained, very open. Cover it. Cover it. All right. So very open, very willing to share, very willing to be vulnerable. It's not an issue for
Sorry.
So it's not an issue for us to be vulnerable and share the things that we struggle with and our ups and downs. We feel that when we shine a light on the hard things, we realize that we're not the only ones in those hard times. And it's a very lonely and scary place when you feel like you're the only one that struggles. But our belief system is that if we shine that light as bright as we can, then we realize that we're all the same and all those struggles, and when we go through them, by potentially highlighting that we're going through them or we've overcome them, then we can show people that they too can go through them and overcome them. So when I watch this video, I made this 2 years ago when I was still a student at film school, and so this video, this is about me. This was when I was having, it was both a depression episode and an anxiety episode, and I thought to myself, let me capture this. So I don't talk with my lips, but I voice over the thoughts that came into my mind, and then I recorded it together to just try and highlight what it's like for somebody potentially like me, to those that maybe don't understand. So my wife's going to push play. So it's pretty full on, it's
Real.
honest with what goes in my head. Can you all see it?
What did you fat pig? Man, you're honestly useless. The absolute worst person I've ever seen try anything. Or they're all laughing at you. For reals. They look at you when you walk into the room and they honestly think, there's a loser. Man, is that the best video you can do? You didn't get any likes. look, you failed something else. You just failed. You try everything and you fail. Your family doesn't love you. Your kids don't love you. Who would ever love you? Your wife doesn't even love you. And why do you blame her? You're absolutely useless. You're the biggest piece of trash. The worst thing this world has ever seen. It'll be better if you were gone. It'll honestly be better for everyone if you just... Nobody would miss you and nobody needs you. You're a bad father. You're a terrible husband. You can't even love your kids properly. What kind of example are you? You are a failure. You're actually a burden to them. And the longer that you hang around, the worse their lives are. The harder it is for your wife to get by, the worse your kids become. You are ruining their lives. Leave. Just go. Nobody wants you.
Alright. Do you just want to come in?
Sorry.
So that's pretty full on, and the reason, so a couple things. This is like the 4th time my wife has watched it. She's 3 times now at this education week. She doesn't like it, but I have to try and be honest with the thoughts in my head, like realize what's reality, be able to face it and dismiss it, because it's not real, but it doesn't mean it's not really happening in my head. And we'll put that there for a second, and we'll start with the analogy, the story, and then we'll show you how that fits in. So everyone's familiar with the Book of Mormon, yep? And Captain Moroni. Everyone know who Captain Moroni is? Alright. He's a strapping lad. When he took over so it's not a religious thing, it's just a story, and it's a good example of strategy. When he took over the Nephite army, they were getting smoked by the Lamanites. So the Lamanites would come out of, I just imagine them running out of the forest and smashing them. And they picked the weakest Nephite cities at the time, and repetitively attack them, repetitively kill many people, take what they want. So Moroni was like, that makes no sense to me, why we are putting all our forces into the strong part and still just getting hammered. So, in the time of peace, or when they weren't around, they went to work on fortifying all the weakest cities until those cities became the strongest cities. And then he went to work on the strong cities and made them stronger. And the Lamanites came back, they went to war, they lost, they retreated. So, we're going to liken a few things. My wife put it up here. Moroni equals help, knowledge, information. The Lamanites, there are triggers or our mental illnesses. The city is our mind, the cities are our mind, your mind, and the people, that's you, us. So we're going to start off first with our triggers and information there. So, who knows what a trigger is? For mental health or anything in general. A trigger, what's a trigger?
Something that sets off a behaviour or a thought. Or...
Yep. It doesn't have to be bad, it can be good. Like lots of people talk about when they smell fresh bread, they're like, oh, I remember this time. Or if they see homemade cookies. Like when I see that, I'm like, oh man, my nan used to make that. Triggers. gets a reaction in your head.
Yeah, is it like a, could it be described as like a sensory input to a subconscious?
Yeah, so it's just the way our brain kind of stores information, and sometimes it's involuntary storage. So when bad triggers, you don't want bad triggers, but your brain has now wired something into your head. So we're going to talk about triggers first. Triggers, which lead to mental health issues. So when we talk about triggers, anything can be a trigger. So I keep saying this, it's like, weird as it is, this could trigger me. The metal, the little blue tint that comes off, the fact that it's this big, whatever. Doesn't have to make sense, but just recognize that it does. And the thing about triggers is you might understand it. Hang it down. Come on. So you might know what your trigger is. You might like understand fully that in the whenever I get this close to it, I'm going to trigger. But your brain doesn't have to like listen to that. I could get this close and nothing happens. I could stand over here thinking I'm in my safe spot and whoa. And when that happens, when you're triggered, it's an onslaught. Come in, there's a few seats.
Pull that seat.
Oh, there's one back there.
We legit went from, we'll probably have nobody here.
Full class.
So, and when I call it an onslaught. So whether you have a high, like you're anxious and you're wound up, or you're having a low and you're feeling pushed down, you still have an onslaught. Those feelings and emotions are like this, and they don't stop until it's over. So it's not like a gradually, from my experience and lots of people talk, it's just so I call it an onslaught. And with that comes, it's when you get in situations that are tough and hard. So I'm going to hand it to my wife to talk about mental illness triggers. When we're in said situations, what can we do? Oh, yeah, I'll get one.
So the name of our workshop today, we didn't name it, they picked this name for us, was how to identify and help those with mental disorders. And we're big believers on sorting out your own mental disorders before, you can't not sort them out, you can't like have sorted them out and boom, I'm this perfect person who can help everyone now, but you have to recognize what's going on in your mental capacity, so that you are a better help to other people, and so you can see what's happening with somebody else. And we also think it's really important that you learn to self-heal and you learn to recover and heal yourself through your mental illnesses. We're big believers of that, and it's actually something I've learnt being Māori and understanding Indigenous psychology, as well as learning the Western way of psychology, which doesn't actually fit my makeup as a Māori person. So, and Indigenous people are self-healers. They are people who turn to their whānau, and the whānau prop them up and have good support systems, and they figure it all out. So we're talking about ourselves first before we can figure out how to help somebody else. Now when it comes to triggers, I don't even know my own triggers. Like the other day, I always share this experience, this was actually yesterday. I got out of the gym, I was having an awesome workout, got out of the gym, walked to the car with some friends, see ya, catch you later. As soon as I got in the car, I just like instant foul mood. And I was like, what? And there's a situation happening with my daughter at her school, which has, it's hideous, but I've been dealing with it fine. But then it was that had made me, I started to think about that, and I started to get really angry at the principal, and I'd sent her an angry email while I was triggered. And then I got on Instagram and I was talking about how I was feeling triggered, because we like to be open, especially while we're in the thick of our mental attacks. But I know I've learnt now that when I'm being triggered, I'm okay to be triggered. I'm okay in the space of feeling triggered because it's gonna go. By about lunchtime, it was gone. I was okay because I had learned how to deal with it. I figured out how to deal with it. My husband knows what to do, which is like feed me or like he took me out to breakfast, and I was able to like clear my mind and be like, okay, what happened was I'm quite an aggressive person naturally. I come from literally a long line of women who are aggressive, violent. When we trigger, that's how we trigger, is become aggressive and violent and very angry and just fly off the handle. Yeah.
Someone write that down quick.
He's okay. So I come from a long line of women like that, and that's not something I like to be, and that's something I'm trying to unlearn. It's something I've learnt and modelled from my mum, who's got it from her mum, and I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want that for my family. I don't want my daughters. I've got one daughter who I see exactly like that, and so try to figure out how to. So what I recognise is that I hadn't allowed those dark, aggressive feelings to surface or deal with them. In this situation with my daughter, normally I would fly off the handle. He had told me, stay in the car, don't you come in to talk to the principal, which was probably a good call because I would have like lost it at her. But I still needed to address that those feelings were there, and I didn't. And then I got to a week later. And so I'm just learning all this like in these today and yesterday. I'm learning this about me. But it's important that mindfulness and consciousness of what is actually happening to you.
And being okay with it, accepting that triggers. It's like saying, no, there's no army. They're not coming to get me.
Yeah.
It's not happening, and then they come and smash you. You acknowledge that it's there and it's okay.
And we talk about everyone has a mental health. Everyone, if you've got a mind and you've got a brain, you've got a mental health. If you've got a body, you've got a physical health. They all need attention. They all need us to put some energy and some time and some aroha into it, so that we can figure out how to fix it or how to get our bodies right. Eat good nutrition, do some physical activity. What are we doing for our mental health to make sure that when the onslaught comes, we have some skills? And I think I handled that trigger pretty good, like for me, even though I'm like still being, I think I'll be triggered for the, I think it's like a lifelong journey. This is not going to be a, sweet, I got it. And yeah.
So the reason why we're talking about it in this order of the Lamanites is, so the Lamanites represent triggers and all that. You don't have to go around. I'm pretty sure the Nephites, although they were weary, in general, they didn't live their day to, oh my goodness, I can't step out of my house, I'm going to get destroyed. They were scared maybe, but they tried their best to live life. So that's important, is to accept that there's dangers. If they were the Nephites, for us, accept that we'll have triggers. Accept it. It's not going anywhere. You can't just extract it. You might be able to work through it where it disappears over time. Sweet. But if it's your reality, accept it. Acknowledge it. Learn about them. My wife said she's trying to learn about what goes on in her head. I try to learn about what goes on. So when she gets upset, so like she's saying, she's aggressive, she'll lash out. And she's super apologetic after. But that triggers me. So from stuff that I've grown up with, feeling like attacked and bullied, triggers some things that happen, and I don't like that. And so what we've had to learn together is that we're going to trigger each other. So we come up with strategies. We just accept it, oh, why didn't you change? It's okay, well, we can't pull that out. I can't just get some pliers and go, let's cut, rip that part out. And she can't do the same to me. So I was like, all right, that's it. That's our reality. What can we do so that we function, we still kind to each other, we can still nurture each other, So we accept it, we learn about it, and then we seek help. So Moroni represents our help. And help can be anything that's good for you. Now don't get that twisted with addictions and stuff like that. That's not help. But help could be information. So there's a website, depression.org.nz. It's great information. It's interactive. That can be help. Help can be a spouse, a parent, a sibling, a friend, a child. It can be music, art, sports, recreation. It can be stamp collecting. It can be whatever. It can be whatever you need. Help isn't just being given the tools. Help is also activities that when you're in an event, a crisis, something's happened, that you can turn to, you know, to bring it down. So if you go to a counsellor or, you know, physician or some sort, they give you techniques, so that can be help. You know, grounding, breathing, something like, you know, feeling everything under your feet and knowing that you're present, things like that. Or it could be, like for me, sometimes in my brain, because I have anxiety, sometimes just goes so fast that I just need to pretend like it's not working, so I'll play Xbox. Because it just stops thinking, and then chill out. But the main important thing through all of this is communication. So you can have all your helpers, but you also need a foundation of support. So Moroni, he was the defense specialist at the time. Sure, he can swing a sword, but his one sword can't beat a whole army, right? So his strength and his help was his knowledge of defense. And he imparted that knowledge to the people, and then the people took that knowledge and they worked on their cities. So, but there's still, what was needed was communication, comms, always. Now, communication is an interesting thing. Everyone thinks it's easy. No, I know how to talk. I have chats every day. I can do it on Facebook, or I say hi to the person at the gas station, have a quick chat with my daughter's teacher, whatever. Text messages, all good. It's not true. Communication is super hard. Super hard. Talking isn't communication. Talking is talking. Talking is like throwing together words. It's not communication. So strategies with communication mean that, you know, for all people, I'm pretty sure in that time, and armies are coming, they would have calls, they would have communication that would be sent out to know that someone's coming, right? I have the same with my wife. When I'm triggered and I get into trouble, I message her straight away, wherever I am, or if I'm next to her, but it's a lot easier for me to send a message, because for whatever reason, my mouth just goes closed, and I can't, it's really hard to talk. Send her a message and I said, I'm struggling. She'll reply with, are you safe? And I'll do the same to her. If she says I'm struggling, I'll say, are you safe? Safe meaning, are you going to harm yourself? And we're very open about that. We're not scared of all these words like self-harm, suicide, all those are words. And those are important words, because if you put fear and scary things around them, you're never going to say them, and then you need to say those words. Cassie, are you safe? No. Are you thinking about harming yourself? Maybe. Are we talking suicide? Potentially. What's potentially? You communicate it out? Sweet. So that whoever's your support system, the system, knows what's going on. And that's okay. But you don't have to be terrified because of the thoughts that happen in your head. So that's what we'll do. We'll just communicate backwards and forwards. We understand the situation. When we understand the situation, then we have plans for those situations. So mine is get out of the room. If this is the room and I'm freaking out, go into that room. If it's the house, step outside. I need to go for a drive, go for a drive. I need to listen to music, I listen to music. She also knows me very well, so she's like, do you want to go outside? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? And I'm like, that. Sweet. If I'm upset at her, there's been a time where I was upset at her. We had a really bad argument. It's probably about 2 months ago. And it happens, let's be honest. That's what we are. Secrets out. It was really bad, but in fact though, it wasn't like a bad argument, but it just, the intensity just seemed to feel heavier. She was going through a low, and so was I. Bad timing. We used to like that. And I remember I kicked the rubbish bin. I never do anything like this, and she was like, what the heck? And I went up to my office, and I was not safe. Because this is honestly what happened is I started, this is the first time it's ever happened. Because what I do is as a filmmaker, I push content out and I interview people who commit suicide and things like that. My brain started bringing all those stories back to my head. And I started thinking, this is what they did, and this is what they did. And I don't like it, and I felt like what I do is, one of the strategies is my mental illness, I gave it a name, it's called Percy. I tell Percy to get lost, because I don't believe what Percy's saying, it's not me. It takes over and it puts thoughts in my head, and I'm like, this is not real, I don't think like this. But on that day I couldn't, and everything was bombarding me so heavy. And we have at our houses there, when we got there, there's a little hook that you hang those ugly fly strips on. And I looked at it, and it can't fit a rope. And I was like, man, you can fit a rope there. I was like, what the heck? And that scared me, and my mind's like, da 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 da. And I was like, I gotta get out. And because we weren't talking, I hadn't messaged her yet. But I went to my friend's house, and we did some screen printing. That friend didn't know what was going on. But I said to her, I was like, I'm not okay, and I'm not safe. But I don't want to talk to you, but this is our plan. And because I am not ignorant to the fact that I'm stronger than mental illness, I'm not like I can beat it anytime I want. So I was like, this is where I am. I'm at this house. This is the address. She knows where it was. And she said, cool. She didn't really talk to me. I didn't want to talk to her, but she knew what was happening. And I was there for like 2 or 3 hours, and then I calmed down. We weren't great that night, but we still had our strategies. So we weren't like amazing that night, but the strategy was in place. Our communication was open. We talked. She knew. I knew. She said, I'm not good. I'm bad too. So, all right. And it took maybe a couple of days, but we kept to our plans and our strategies that we'd learned and we'd developed, right? And then we were safe. So that leads us to these two go together, the city and people. So with any city, can this chapel build itself? It's a redundant question, but obviously we know the answer. Can this chapel build itself? No. It needs people. So the look of this chapel is determined by the people that build it. I'm a terrible builder. If I had an attempt at building a chapel, it would look ugly. So somebody who was skilled and had the skills, they produce something beautiful. They probably had to get someone to teach them to do that, and then they could create it. So we are the people that live in the city, which is our mind. So we are the only ones that can build our mind up, just us. I can go to a council every day, so I can do anything. I don't implement anything. You can think what we say today is cool, but if you're struggling and you don't implement anything, nothing's going to happen. So the concept here is that Moroni could teach those people all day long, but if they're like, that city is going to stay like it is, which means that those Lamanites are going to continue to come and they're going to get smoked. So we can have all the help in the world, but now it comes down to us. So I'm hand back to my wife, and she can talk to us about things that we do, like things that we can do to practice, to work up our strength, resilience, etc. Stuff that she does, stuff that I do.
So, as we said, big on self-healing and big on figuring it out yourself, but also what you need, like obviously with the communication, is support and support groups and whānau and husband, wives. You need that support to come around you and to like prop you up. There was a study done in New Zealand where it was people who struggled with mental illness, and I can't remember what the question was that they were asked, but the stats were that about 56% of them said that their families don't either acknowledge their mental illness or don't believe they've got mental illness, and then from that same study it was strongly suggested that like we need families, we need support, we need that. So half of people were trying to figure out their mental illness and their mental health with no support, and that's honestly like a death sentence, I want to say, because it's a big deal figuring it out yourself, but having people who understand, who don't judge, who will support you is a big deal. And it's important to know as well that there's a season for relationships and friendships. I remember when I first went through when I realised I had depression, it was postnatal depression, so I got it after my third baby, and I remember my friends from church college, I know they knew about it, but they hadn't come to me, they hadn't talked to me, and I got real bothered by that. When I came out of the depression, when I finally was like months out of the darkness, I was thinking back on that and I was like, where were my friends? And I got really gutted about it. And then the following year I bumped into them and they were like, oh, I'm really sorry, like I didn't, like, are you okay now? And then, but I realized like they just weren't the friends for that time, because I'd actually made a whole bunch of other friends who we were actually all going through postnatal. We'd all had these babies that we couldn't handle, and we were all really struggling, and we kind of built a little community where we helped each other out and we talked about it. And it was fine, and I was like, you know what, my friends I didn't need my friends, I needed this group of people, and that was okay, and that was my support group for that time. And as I've evolved, now I've just went, I just need my husband, and talking about it to anyone and everyone, that becomes my support as well, because I'm actually not a person who needs validation from anyone else. I don't feel like I actually need anyone, but I bring in a lot of like support for myself. I don't know what it is, but being open and honest about it, lots of people just want to come and help me anyway, or just check if I'm okay and things like that. What else did you want me to talk about? Yes.
Well, the reason I asked you to talk about like those kind of things is because there's not one solution to what help you in those hard times. So if she really likes nature, I mean, that's okay to me.
You don't like
Like, I like diving in the water, but I don't care to like frolic in the grass. She does. She loves the maramataka from Maori. She loves looking at the moon and enjoys the phases of the moon. It really helps her and calms her. But just because it works for her doesn't mean it's going to work for me. But that doesn't mean that that I dismiss it because it's not effective for me. You know what I mean? It's allowing everybody to function and heal how they function. And so for you, it's really important, if you have something going on, to figure out what you love. Because what we've learned is doing the things that you love and make you feel good, that fills you up. And that builds your mental resilience. Being able to, whatever it is, you know, if it's, like let's say it's drawing, if for a couple of days a week you can get some drawings in, it fills you up. And so then your mental defenses, they become stronger and better because you're doing things that make you feel good, as opposed to just being on this grind trying to make it through. And the reason like we keep coming back to these cities and building cities, the analogy is great because I'm assuming that these cities had defenses at the time. I'm assuming they're humongous. Well, they just didn't work. Whatever reason, they didn't work. They called them weak defenses, but I'm assuming that every city has defenses and every city has people to defend them. But they didn't work. They all get wiped out. So it just wasn't effective. And it took someone with skills to come in and train them to work it out, you know. Now, he did that for all the cities in Nephi, right? They're not all cookie cutters, so one might be in mountains, one might be low. He'd have to do different things for different cities. That's the same as you. Me and her, that's exactly us. We have different needs, etc. So we have different strategies. We do not have the same strategies to help us cope. Now, one thing that we often talk about is misconceptions, because misconceptions in the mental health world is damaging. When I say damaging, I mean they come with great intentions, but they end up hurting someone. For example, it works for her, it's going to work for me. You know? So if she starts forcing these techniques on me, and I'm trying to build my mental resilience, I'm not going to get anywhere. I'm actually going to go downhill. When these triggers come and the attacks come on, I have no defenses because those defenses weren't good for me, and I get in trouble. So there's a couple of things, misconceptions that we want to talk about because I think it's important. And one of them we're going to talk about is suicide. So I'm not scared of that word. My wife's not scared of the word. It's just a word. We don't talk about suicide being the most important thing about mental illness and welfare because it's not a mental illness. It's not a condition. It's an action. It's a decision. It's somebody who's desperate and who's struggling and needs help, has got to a point where maybe they didn't have the right amount of support, or things just didn't line up, and they make a decision. But our belief, or my belief, mostly is that if we can start at the beginning, and you're not going to get it right all the time, like you're going to make mistakes, but if we can get that support, that help, that foundation, the communication up, we can recognize what our triggers are, and we can try and learn about them without an onslaught, in the good days. All this got to happen in the good time. We work on it. When those hard times come, you can handle it, right? Then you might not make it past that desperation point. There's a lot of energy put on that last phrase, but we can do a lot better if we work on ourselves in the good times, and there's good times. Second thing is that communication. It's so hard to talk. Everyone says just talk, and that's why I say communication isn't easy. I'm a great talker. I get told to be quiet more often than not, but that's my best friend. I'll tell you everything. For the life of me, I can't open my mouth when I'm in a low. I can't say anything. I struggle so bad, and I cry because I need help, and I'm struggling. And she's right next to me, and she just starts trying to put words in my mouth because she understands me, but it's so hard. So if you're trying to tell somebody, just come to me when you're low, I don't think it's as easy as that. It's far easier if we go to them. Mike King is a great advocate in this space. He said, if your friends haven't turned to you in the last 12 months, maybe you're a sling friend. And I was like, that makes sense. He's like, because for me, I have this thing called mental currency. I make up names and phrases for everything to make sense to me. And I only have, just like money, I don't have a lot of it. So I only have X amount of places I can spend it. You know, if I invest it all into one thing, I have to know that I've got lots of other things that I have to get through my day and my weeks. And if I run out, I'm not going to function. So what he's saying is that your mind doesn't always have the capability to function like normal people, or not normal people, that's a bad word, because we're normal. To function like people that don't have a mental illness, we don't think the same. So what he's saying is that in the good days, build up the rapport. In the good days, you build those rapports, and you don't just try and make friends because I think you're going to kill yourself, so I'm going to be a mate. That's not how it works. I don't want you to be my friend. I'm not going to put any of my currency into you. Just because you're coming to save me, come be my friend. So when I hear let's just talk, I'm here, I would prefer to hear, let me come to you. Bro, what are you up to? Should we go get lunch and hang out, go to the gym, whatever it is? Hey girl, what are you up to? Let's go frolic in the grass. I don't know what my wife does, whatever you do. Whatever you ladies love to do. But I got the talking sticks, yes. So, but that's the conception, and it can be dangerous. I'm telling you, it's so hard to talk. And the other misconception, I see it float around the social media space, is that if someone's taking their life, it's selfish. It's not true. You saw my video. Those are the thoughts that come into my head. You saw the video. Those are my legitimate, real thoughts, that I'm a burden to my family. And that's not true. But imagine if that's how I feel and I believe that, and I love them with all my heart. I don't want to be a burden to them. I want them to be free and to function. So in my mind, in a time where I may not be functioning properly, I think that could be a viable option. And the 684 or 5 people that took their lives in the last 12 months, that I'm pretty sure was what they were thinking. And it's not selfish, they're brave. That might not make sense to lots of people, it makes sense to me. And my issue is that we keep telling these people who are weak and struggling to find the strength to reach out and ask for help. But they don't have the strength to sometimes live. So how can we expect them to do that. So these misconceptions is that we have all the strength in the world just to come out and go, yeah man, I'm struggling, I need your help. It's not always like that. But the hope is that if we build up these beautiful relationships in our circle, if we know our circle, then one, you can recognize that something's different. They might be smiling funny. For real, you might be strange. Hey, what's up? How you doing today? I'm not doing good. Often I know that if you initiate, lots of people might be able to say something, you know. But, so yes?
Yeah, I was trying to ask a question how I got a daughter that she was going through the school, but all her friends was committing suicide at the same time. And then I often found her letters under her bed that saying that, you know, this life is not fair and she wants to be with friends and stuff. So the school, I ran up the school and take it to the, what you call those people? Counseling. And then she came back and she said, oh, then it's not help. So sometimes she just cry for nothing.
Yeah.
And she just acts as a normal daughter.
I understand that. So the last thing that we talk about is called holding space. And my wife is really good at talking, she's way better at it than me. Sometimes you just can't fix the mamas, the pain that they're feeling. You just can't fix it. You can't take it away. And also as members of the church, we can't just go, the scriptures, prayer and fasting is going to take it away either. So what we have to do is we hold space. We sit with them and we just tell them, I love you. Like, I love you. You remind them as much as you can. So like, I'm a little emotional because I said to my wife one time, I was like, she's really good at holding space. And I was feeling really low, and just like you heard in that video, that was what was happening, right? And she said, what, and I was just starting to come out and she said, what can I do? And I was like, please, just remind me that I'm not worthless. Because from time to time, I can't tell myself, like I can't remember. So as family members, if all we can do, if honestly all we can do is just give them all the love we have, sometimes that's all we can do. And it's terrifying. And that's what holding space is. That's a really scary thing. Is my counselor says it to me. My mum, she works in, it's called the crisis analysis team. And we often ring her, like if I'm struggling or she's struggling, we're like, hey, James is doing this or Cassie's doing this. She's like, sit there and you love them and just let them know. Because the thing about mental health, unless they want help, you can't do anything. And that's really scary. I promise I understand that. And this may not be the best answer, but like the best thing that we can do is pour out all the love that we have, and we can implement some of these things. Try to have open communication and talk. But my wife will explain about holding spaces, because what I do, I try and give solutions. And she gets angry at me for that.
That's a typical male thing. The male says, well, here are 3 different options you've got.
No, and then it ends up she yells at me. She may say other words that aren't appropriate as well. But she's really talented at what's called holding space. So I'll let her explain holding space.
So I think holding space is so important because, like, if you think about the words holding space, I actually envision it as someone coming to me holding a space of nothing, but in that space is just a whole heap of scary, uncomfortable feelings. And when you're holding space with someone, that means you're going up to that person and you're holding all that uncomfortable, scary feelings too. So it is really uncomfortable to hold space with someone. It is really scary. It is hard not to fix. I think it's human nature to want to fix and offer solutions and advice, thinking that's helpful. Sometimes it is, like, you can trust your instincts. I believe that God gave us instincts and God gave us all that sort of like spiritual energy to help us know and discern what we can offer when we need to offer, but mostly don't offer. Don't judge, non-judgmental. When people are saying, I want to kill myself, this is how I want to do it, this is where I want to go, I've like almost kind of made a plan, like, don't freak out. Like, I still freak out when I hear this. We have lots of people coming to us who are suicidal, and who are saying things. He's said things before, and I'm like, inside I feel like I'm shaking, and I feel like my whole face has gone red because I've just gone really flushed, and I'm like, oh, this is freaking me out. But I stay calm, and I'm like, just listen, and I start asking questions to help better understand what they're feeling. But it also helps them to find the answers to questions they didn't realize they had either, and it helps them to acknowledge what's going on with them, and it makes it less when you say it out loud. Like, it's almost like it takes the power out of the mental illness. I find that a lot when I say I have depression. Every time I say it, I feel like I don't even have it. Like, you're a fraud, you don't have depression. But when I'm low and I say it out loud, it does make it smaller and easier.
Just with that, I can carry over, like, so I did a year of social work degree, and then part of that you have to take counselling papers, and we had to do a counselling thingy, and they drill into you that you aren't changing anything. You aren't doing anything, you're facilitating their change, and it's them that has to make the change. So that is the unfortunate yet beautiful thing, because when someone makes a change for themselves, it's very strong, and there's a deep conviction there.
Yeah.
So when somebody makes, just like the gospel, when you come to the knowledge that the church is true yourself, that's far better than, oh, my mum did go to church. So when you come to the realization that this life is to be lived, and you want to be here, and you want to figure out how you need to do that, that's more powerful. That's why, they teach people that are going into the profession, you're not changing anything.
Yeah.
You're not doing it, it's them. You're offering this technique to help them out of a hard time, or
just your listening ear, or just your aroha. So yeah, you're not going to fix their problems, you're not going to fix what's hurting them. And once you accept that, it's easier to figure your way through it, and not try and control what they're saying, not putting, like, they might say, I want to kill myself. No, you don't want to kill yourself. Like, no, they do want to kill themselves. Like, and it's okay, like, because they haven't yet, and they're talking to you about it, and that's amazing.
That's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
We got 1 minute.
Oh yeah.
Del, you want to say?
Well, just is it possible for mental health to get in the way of personal revelation?
Say it again.
Is it possible for mental health to get in the way with receiving clear communication? I've got a friend who's been suicidal, been a member all his life, but he's been getting really angry with God about not getting revelation to how to help him. But he's also going through the numb feelings mode. I can't feel anything. So my question is, can his mental health get in the way with receiving revelation?
I think yes, not like a yes and a no.
Although it doesn't seem to, but can the experiences block it out?
We have another video that I did of her story and a friend of mine's story. They're both similar, as where for a long time, my wife, she went numb to feeling anything. She couldn't feel anything. So you know how you get those beautiful butterfly, whatever, tingling up your spine, all that, nothing. Nothing, no good, no bad, no nothing. And I was like, man, it's really hard. And same was another friend of mine, and she was on medication. And then as we talked, both of them realized that he doesn't give up on you. So this is not doctrine, this is my opinion. He doesn't give up on you, he'll find other ways to talk to you. So my wife and my friend, they relied on their memories of, like, I felt like this when this happened. And then he started speaking to their thoughts. So it didn't come with feelings, but just thoughts, you know. But that's not going to say, I can't answer for your friend, but I believe that Heavenly Father won't abandon you.
No.
And if you seek an answer, He'll provide an opportunity. You know, we learn in the scriptures, if you seek, you'll find. That's not, if you seek while you got mental issues, you're not going to find. You know, He'll find the way, you can find the way.
Yeah.
Can I just testify to that? Like, I had a really rough time in the middle of the year, and I felt like I couldn't feel things the way that I used to. But like, someone bought me flowers, and I love flowers, and someone sent me mail, and I love mail, and someone, like, all these things kept happening. And then the Spirit said to me, that's God showing you love. God was bringing me flowers, God was sending me mail, because He knew that those are the things that I loved. So during that time where your friend might feel like they're not receiving revelation the way they used to, it might just be, okay, I need to look for different ways that I can receive.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Who can you go to identify the daughter that, you know, like my daughter? My husband is in the psychiatric department, the mental health, but she doesn't want anything to do with him.
You can just go.
I'll give you a website.
Okay.
So yeah, so you can go onto the depression.org website, and there's self-help tests there. So your daughter can go through it and answer all these questions, and then it'll tell you at the end, it sounds like you have severe depression, you should go see a doctor.
I went to the suicide awareness prevention. Oh, it was a really awesome workshop.
Yeah.
It was amazing actually. It's one of the best I've ever been to, by the brother and sister from Auckland, and they're doing a part 2 shortly about suicide and recognising the signs and how to work through it, and all the organisations have got amazing handouts up there, and they're specialists, so I would highly recommend part 2 this afternoon. I think it's at 2 or 3. It's really good, very, very powerful.
Are they up at the...
They're in the library theatre.
Library theatre.
Yeah, in the Menden Hall. Yeah, there's a part 2.
Cool. We gotta wrap it up. There's people that talk. But thank you for coming, and I hope you took some things away from it.